Magdalene Benedict was in her third round of chemotherapy when she noticed something strange on the bank app. She didn't know exactly why, but that day she decided to check the joint account statement, something she never usually did. But something inside her said, "Look, there were 3 large transfers. One of them was for $346,000. Her stomach turned to ice. Her soul almost left her body. The money had been sent directly from the joint account to a name she unfortunately recognized. Jane Peter, the same woman her husband had introduced as a wellness consultant to take care of her during treatment. For the past few months, Jacob had barely touched her. He told her he needed space, that seeing her like that was too hard, too heavy. At first, he came with her to the sessions. He held her hand, brought her juice, and told her everything would be okay. But after the 6th chemo, the excuses began. He said the environment was too dark, too draining, emotionally exhausting. Eventually, he just stopped coming. That same week, he claimed he was going on a spiritual retreat to come back renewed, more prepared to support her. What he didn't know was that while he was recharging, probably beside his mistress, shamelessly spending her money, Magdalene was gathering strength from a place he could never understand. And when he came back, he discovered that she was capable of things he couldn't imagine, not even in his worst nightmares. She thought she was prepared for anything. But nothing prepared her for the day her own body became a battlefield. Chemotherapy hit like a hurricane. Her skin burned. Her hair fell out in clumps on the pillow. And still, she was the one apologizing for being weak, for being emotional, for needing help. Jacob told her he was there for her, that everything was temporary. But his eyes told a different story. In the beginning, he hugged her, cracked silly jokes in the waiting room, told her she was strong, that this would pass. But once the treatments got harder, he started pulling away. First came the delays, then the silence, then the excuses, meetings, traffic, bad energy, until one day there was no message at all. That's when she knew she was going through this alone, even though his name still appeared beside hers as husband. The day she decided to shave her head completely, she asked him to be there. It was symbolic to her, a mark of courage. He said he couldn't watch, that he couldn't handle seeing her like that. She pretended to understand, smiled over the phone, and went alone to the salon. The woman who shaved her head cried more than she did. She came home with her head wrapped in a red scarf, one her mother had given her. Jacob wasn't home. He said he needed to clear his head. That night, Magdalene slept alone, with a throbbing scalp, a cold pillow, and a silence in the room that mocked her pain. Her doctor suggested she stop working, to take a break from stress. Jacob loved that idea. He said he would handle everything, bills, groceries, medications. As long as I'm around, you'll only have to focus on getting better, he said. And she believed him. Because in that phase of illness, a person clings to any gesture of care. She started sleeping more, letting him handle things. She stopped checking anything. The joint account was being used only by him. She thought she was in good hands. And for a while maybe she was. Until she started noticing. He seemed too happy. Like someone living a different life. One far away from the pain of the woman he'd vowed to love. Jacob started going out more. He said he was taking a breathwork course. That he wanted to be a better support system. That he needed to learn how to care for someone in pain. She didn't question it. Honestly, it sounded noble. But with this new Jacob came total absence. Chemo sessions were long. Tests were exhausting. And the worst part was having no one to share it with. Even his texts became shorter. No affection. No questions. It was during that emptiness that he came up with a miracle solution. I hired a holistic consultant, he said. She'll accompany you, take care of you. Her name is Jane Peter. At first, Magdalene thought he was genuinely trying. She wanted to believe the best. Jane was sweet, soft-spoken. She made ginger and lemon tea. But something about her didn't sit right. She was too present. Her perfume was too sweet. She knew too much. What medications Magdalene took, when her tests were scheduled. Jacob started quoting her all the time. Jane said this. Jane thinks that. Ask Jane. Magdalene was the one who was sick, but Jane was the one filling every space. When the two of them disappeared for 2 days on a breathwork retreat, Magdalene began connecting the dots. Looking back now, it was clear. He hadn't even tried to hide it. But she was still missing one thing. Solid proof that she wasn't going crazy. One day, during a chemo session, she paid for a test using the bank app. That wasn't something she usually did. Jacob had always insisted on handling it. But that day, something told her to check the statement after the payment. That's when she saw it. 3 large transfers. One of them, $346,720. It felt like her entire body froze. Right there in the clinic's waiting room, with a needle still in her arm, she realized the truth. He hadn't just betrayed her. He had stolen from her. The nurses walked by without noticing. She sat there frozen. The phone slipped from her hand. The screen still lit. Her world was made of tests, injections, and fragile hope. His world. Spas. Transfers. Yoga. Fresh starts. But what Jacob didn't know was that even with a weak body, Magdalene's soul was waking up. And a woman who wakes up is a force no one can stop, especially when she carries pain and the will for revenge in the same chest. She promised herself she would make him feel 1,000 times worse than she felt in that moment. But for that, she needed a well-structured plan and ice-cold focus. One day, Jacob simply stopped pretending. He began treating Magdalene like someone he believed would die soon. He took long naps, went out to de-stress, and bought expensive wines, as if he had something to celebrate. Magdalene spent her days in bed, nauseous and dizzy, and he told her he needed to clear his mind. That was when it hit her. In his mind, she wouldn't live more than 3 more months. He had already accepted her death. He already acted like a widower, even though she was still alive. And worse, he had started spending like he was already on his own, as if what belonged to her, including her mother's inheritance, was some kind of lottery prize he had just won and couldn't wait to blow. The inheritance Magdalene's mother left was the only security she had. Her mother used to say, "Magdalene, this money is your shield. Never depend on any man." But when she got sick, she couldn't manage everything anymore. Honestly, she didn't even have the strength. She let Jacob handle the finances. He offered. And she never imagined that the man she had been with for 10 years would do something so cruel. He said he wanted to spare her the stress. She agreed, because she trusted him. Because she loved him, because she never thought he would take advantage of a wife going through chemotherapy. But now everything made sense. The expensive purchases, the disappearances, the sudden joy in his face she hadn't seen in years. While Magdalene was fighting to stay alive, Jacob was already using her money to fund a new life. She would never forget what she went through during that time. Alone in the dark, feeling her heart slow down. That was when she remembered her mom and the promise she made at her funeral. "I won't be weak. I won't let anyone erase me like they did to you." She took a deep breath and felt a cold rage rise up her spine. For the first time, she didn't just want to survive. She wanted to come back. Come back strong and make him pay for every second he treated her like she was already dead. When Jacob returned from that so-called retreat, he came in smiling. He brought her a strange necklace with colorful stones. He said it would align her with her healing purpose, that she had attracted this illness into her life, but that she could cure herself with positive energy. She thanked him with a calm smile, and when he went upstairs to shower, she opened his laptop. Her hands were shaking, and she was still weak, but she began checking every statement, every transfer, every expense, every detail. And that was when she found it. A name, a number, an address. None of it belonged to her, but all of it had been paid for with her money. In that moment, with cold skin and burning eyes, she made a decision. If death was circling her, it would have to wait, because before she left this world, she was going to destroy Jacob's first. One of the statements showed a recent payment, $2,800 as a deposit, plus 2 months paid in advance. The account name, Jane Peter. The destination, an address she had never seen before. It stuck in her mind until she remembered something. Jacob had a bad habit of saving receipts in random folders on his computer. She opened a folder labeled Future Projects, one he usually used for work drafts. And there it was, a PDF titled Lease Unit 1702. The contract was under Jane's name, but the one who paid was Jacob. The apartment was far away, on the other side of town. It had a balcony, a lake view, brand new appliances, all picked out with her money. Her stomach turned, because on that paper was the truth he never had the courage to say out loud. He was already starting over, and he had done it assuming she wouldn't be around to see it. The next day, Magdalene asked her sister to drive her to that address. She didn't say why, only that she needed to get out of the house. When they got there, she stayed across the street, watching from inside the car. Jacob came out shortly after, wearing light, expensive clothes, laughing on the phone. Behind him, Jane was holding his hand. She was wearing one of Magdalene's necklaces. In that moment, Magdalene didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just felt one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't going to end like that. And so, with a weak body and a soul on fire, she started building the plan that would destroy both of them. Publicly, with the same coldness they used to erase her in her most fragile moment. The next day, Jane showed up with fresh juice, a flower in her hair, and a calm smile that made Magdalene sick. "You need to keep your mind peaceful, Magdalene," she said, like she was talking to a child. As if she wasn't the one sleeping with her husband while she fought for her life. Magdalene pretended it didn't hurt. Pretended she didn't know. But every one of Jane's gestures, every touch, every take care of yourself, was a disguised insult. She cared for Magdalene the way someone feeds a wounded bird, just waiting for it to die. Magdalene didn't cry anymore. Not from anger. Not from humiliation. She just observed. Jane made her bed like it was hers. Stored her medications in the same cabinet where Magdalene kept old letters. She was everywhere. It was like Jane was rehearsing to take her place, with her permission. When Jane left to buy flowers, of course flowers, Magdalene opened the laptop and created a new folder. She named it Evidence. Every receipt, every bank statement, every email screenshot Jacob had forgotten to delete. She gathered it all, calmly, coldly, strategically. Because if they thought she was going to die quietly, they were wrong. She was still here, and now she was dangerous. She reached out to the lawyer who had handled her mother's inheritance. She went to his office in person, even though she was trembling with weakness. She handed him the folder with the evidence and told him everything. He looked at her with the seriousness of someone who knew what was at stake. "You have a strong case, Magdalene. If you take this to court, he's going to come out of it worse than you can imagine." That was it. She didn't want a scandal. She wanted strategy and justice. In the days that followed, Magdalene kept up the act. She let Jacob kiss her on the forehead like he was the hero of the story. She let Jane Peter make chamomile tea, rub ointment on her skin, and fill the house with that sweet but poisonous voice. Jane didn't do it out of compassion. She did it because she already felt like she owned the place. But Magdalene allowed her to, because now she was collecting evidence. Jane was good at pretending, but Magdalene was better. She faked gratitude. She faked weakness. She faked not knowing anything. Meanwhile, the folder with her evidence kept growing. And deep inside, her soul was starting to breathe again. The more Jane served her with that fake smile, the more Magdalene knew that what was coming next would be better. More precise, more destructive. Then one night, Jane left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Magdalene walked over quietly, pretending to look for medicine. She opened the phone with a quick swipe. The chat name read Jacob. And the first message she saw knocked the air out of her lungs. "She's getting worse fast. Soon we'll have it all wrapped up." Magdalene scrolled slowly. They were talking about her like she was already dead. Like she was just an obstacle. A problem. They were discussing money, a final transfer, and closing everything out. Jacob wrote, "The next step is getting everything squared away with the lawyer." Jane replied with a heart emoji. At that moment, Magdalene took a picture of the screen and emailed it to herself. Then she went back to the living room, sat on the couch, and acted like nothing had happened. Jane brought her tea, tucked her under a blanket, and wished her good night. Magdalene thanked her, almost smiled, but deep inside, something had changed. She was no longer just a betrayed wife. She was now a victim, with proof of a conspiracy. The next morning, she reached out to an old friend of her mother's. The woman worked in security systems and owed their family a favor. Magdalene explained what she needed. A small hidden camera in the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom. The woman didn't ask questions. By the end of the day, it was installed, and Magdalene could watch everything from her phone. Little by little, she got addicted to watching the footage. Lying in bed with headphones in, she watched how they moved through the house like she wasn't even there. Jacob would sometimes pull Jane close by the waist in the kitchen and talk about the new apartment. Jane went through Magdalene's belongings like they already belonged to her. But now, everything was being recorded. A week later, she caught a full scene on camera. They were in the hallway talking about the inheritance. Jane told Jacob he should speed things up. He hesitated and said he needed to wait for the final medical report. She snapped back. "What are you waiting for?" "For her to die naturally." The camera caught everything. even the silence afterward. A silence that spoke the truth. They were in agreement. That night, Magdalene saved the video and sent it to the lawyer. And for the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully. Her body was still weak, but her mind had never been sharper. And she knew this revenge had everything it needed to be perfect. She started acting more tired, weaker. She coughed more, spoke slowly. Jacob would ask, "Do you want Jane to sleep over tonight?" She would shake her head, give a sad smile, and say, "I'd rather be alone." They believed her, because they wanted to. Meanwhile, she was getting better in secret. Slowly, her fever faded. The nausea became less. But she pretended otherwise. Every fake groan was a disguise. Every sigh was part of the plan. Jacob started letting his guard down. He thought everything was under control. Jane was more cautious. She looked at Magdalene with suspicion, but she had no proof. Magdalene had plenty. She caught another video from the hidden camera. It showed Jacob on the phone with someone from the bank. He was asking about early liquidation of joint assets. His voice was cold, technical, like she didn't exist anymore. That night before bed, Jacob knocked on her door holding an envelope. He said it was just a security document. Nothing urgent. She smiled weakly and said, "Leave it on the dresser. I'll sign it tomorrow, if I'm still alive." When he left, she opened the envelope with trembling hands. It was a formal request to move the only money still under her name, and not in their joint account. Jacob said he had found an incredible treatment overseas, a clinic in Toronto, with more modern and gentle therapies. He told her they needed an upfront deposit, that if she wanted to live, she couldn't waste time on paperwork. But Magdalene looked it up. The clinic didn't exist. The email was fake. It was all part of a scam. He really thought that besides being weak, she was also stupid. That money was the only part of her finances she had never touched, and he knew it. He wanted to leave her with nothing. He truly believed she would die, and he planned to drain every last cent, so that not even her family could inherit anything. The next morning, Magdalene told him she was confused by the terms and needed help understanding them. He hugged her tight and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything. You just need to trust me." As if that still existed. Later that day, she returned to the lawyer's office. She brought the document and showed him every detail. He looked at her, serious and firm. "This man is trying to wipe out everything that's yours." In that moment, Magdalene was no longer just a recovering patient. She was a woman about to strike back. She started waking up differently, stronger, more certain, the kind of certainty that doesn't shake anymore. Because when a woman bleeds in silence for too long, there comes a day when she stops crying and starts acting. Magdalene made herself a cup of tea, put lipstick on her cracked lips, and opened the computer. The lawyer had messaged her. "It's all here, Magdalene. We've got enough. The statements, the recordings, the documents, the fake contract with the Canadian clinic, the attempt to move your personal fund, the account in the mistress's name, the request to remove you from your own life insurance." It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. It was criminal. Jacob had left saying he was going to the pharmacy for vitamins. But Magdalene knew exactly where he was headed. Back to that lakeside apartment with the perfect view for fresh starts. Before the door even shut, she was already on the phone with the bank, freezing funds, activating locks, and starting official investigations. The lawyer guided her step by step over a video call. Meanwhile, she sent a short message to Jane Peter from her own number. "I know everything." Then she turned off the phone and left it on the counter, so it couldn't be tracked. After that, she emailed all the documents to the lawyer and to herself in an encrypted backup. If anything happened to her, the truth wouldn't stay hidden. Before leaving, she changed her clothes. No chatzkaf, no sick face. She wore her mother's red blouse, a firm pair of jeans, and lipstick. For the first time in months, she looked at herself in the mirror without fear, and she saw herself whole, alive. She arrived at the lawyer's office at exactly 2 p.m. The complaint was filed right then and there. All the evidence was attached, along with a request to freeze all assets in Jacob and Jane's names. The plan wasn't just hers anymore. Now it was legal. When Jacob came home, he found the locks changed and a note on the door. "You thought I was weak. Now you'll feel the weight of my strength." He had no idea what was coming. In less than an hour, his phone started ringing nonstop. First the bank, then the accountant, then the lawyer. Their lawyer, until 2 weeks earlier. From the couch at her sister's house, Magdalene watched everything on her tablet. She sipped tea and gently rested her hand over her swollen belly from chemo. The joint account was frozen. The financial fraud unit received all the complaint documents. Within 2 days, the assets in Jane's name were also pulled into the investigation. Jane tried to act fast. She tried to withdraw money to hide, but it was too late. That fresh start apartment address was now part of a court order. Jacob tried calling Magdalene 10 times. Then the messages came, begging, accusing, crying. Magdalene, what did you do? You're going to destroy everything out of spite. But he was the one who had destroyed everything. She only protected herself. Jane, meanwhile, disappeared. She returned the car, changed her number, and stepped down from the position she never actually held. Jacob went after her and found out she was already searching for a lawyer. That's how fear works. When it strikes, everyone runs. And people who once plotted together end up hiding alone. That night, Magdalene slept with the door locked and her plan fully in motion. Jacob had believed he had won. He thought she was too weak to fight back. But what he didn't know was that she had already won. And his downfall was only a matter of time. Sometime later, she went back to the hospital. No tears. No fear. On the medical chart, her latest test results looked different, stable, even promising. The doctor looked surprised. You look stronger, he said. And she smiled. Because it was true. Her body still carried scars, but her soul was finally standing tall. She didn't say a word about what was happening. She just continued with her treatment. But behind the scarf, the soft clothes, and the calm walk, there was a woman at war. And now, that war was public. Jacob had been formally summoned to testify. The case moved forward on 2 sides, civil for asset misappropriation and criminal for fraud and embezzlement. When he received the subpoena, he tried everything. Calls, voice notes, emails. It was a mistake, he said. I was lost. Jane manipulated me. But none of it shook her. Because this time, she had the evidence, and time was on her side. The DA's office had everything. The recordings, the transfers, the fake contract, even the document he had tried to get her to sign. The one that would have taken away all her assets. At the preliminary hearing, Jacob played the victim. He said he acted out of desperation, that he was seduced. But the judge looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You didn't seem so desperate when you were buying $900 French wine." The room went silent. And right then Magdalene knew he wasn't getting away with this. Justice, which so often feels blind, saw clearly this time. Her lawyer called later that day. "Magdalene, it's just a matter of time. He's going to pay for everything." She hung up the call with a calm she hadn't felt in months. She could finally breathe. The following week, she went to the salon. She took off her scarf and cut the little hair that had started to grow back. She looked in the mirror and saw herself again. Not exactly like before, but someone stronger. She started walking more, eating better, picking up small routines. And every time a bad memory returned, she took a deep breath and repeated to herself, "He didn't kill me. He taught me how to live." Her mother always said, "The most powerful kind of revenge is the one carried out with dignity." And watching Jacob be judged, humiliated, and lose everything, without her lifting a finger, that was it. She didn't need to scream or act like him. All she had to do was survive. And she did, more alive than ever. The judge was clear when giving the sentence. 3 years in prison, no parole, partial loss of civil rights, and full repayment of the stolen funds. Jacob cried. He begged. He said prison would ruin him, break him. But by then no one cared. The victim had a name, a face, and she was standing tall, looking him in the eye. Jane had vanished, but the police found her. She got 2 years. At her final chemo session, the nurses applauded her. The tumor had shrunk. Today, Jacob lives with his mother, the same woman who always hated Magdalene, but now calls him the shame of the family. And Magdalene? She sleeps in peace, with clean scans and a clean name. Slowly, she got everything back. Her body, her self-worth, her will to live. She got a new tattoo on her wrist, the letter B, for Benedict, her mother's last name. She started walking in the park again, cooking for herself. And she realized something. Revenge wasn't watching Jacob suffer. It was seeing herself happy again, without fear, without pain, and without him.